Design was taught in the past in a largely lecture environment. I find this largely ineffective because students are learning design for the first time. So it's very hard for them to retain this knowledge, especially when design is not defined within the very strict definitions.
In the foundational subject, Form Exploration, Matthias tries a different approach. He applies the trivium stages of learning to allow students to have a good grasp of design fundamentals. The trivium stages of learning consist of the grammar, the dialectic, and the rhetoric. The three stages are repeated weekly through a structured framework of self-directed and peer learning. In Form Exploration, basic design elements and principles are the grammar of the subject. The learning of the grammar is repeated in different forms in each lesson.
At the grammar stage, the students are given some abstract topics of design principles like point, line, and plane. So the students are tasked to look into books or resources that they can find to look at how these things look like to them so they are able to identify. Then they'll come back as a group to discuss different ways of looking at these design principles. We also get them to act out what the design principles are so that they experience it instead of just looking at it. So we also have different exercises like we're getting them to draw, to sketch out these design principles, so it helps them to better retain some of this knowledge.
The dialectic stage focuses on the reasoning and practicing of the grammar, and students have to produce drawings to prove their understanding.
Trivium provides clarity at every stage of learning. It gives the student structure to learn design. So they have to do peer learning, peer sharing, so they can learn from each other instead of so reliant on the tutors.
We have small group discussions and presentations. So from there we get feedback and we also get ideas from one another. Then we also learn how to ask relevant questions in class.
When students reach the rhetoric stage, they have to show their understanding of the grammar and dialectic by making models that express the design elements they've learnt.
The different stages of learning are repeated every week so that the student can have time to internalize this learning method.
The design principles that we learn were drilled into our brains by doing drawings every day and making models every week. So in a way, it becomes a habit for us, and it's a more hands-on assignment, so it's more interesting than lectures and we learn much better.
At the TP Lufthansa Technical Training Center, students have to sit for 7 theoretical assessments during their 6-month training. To test their knowledge, each assessment has 20 to 80 multiple-choice questions covering 5 to 20 topics. In the past, students were assessed on paper. With about 150 students in each batch, the amount of time and effort needed to generate the assessments and manage the results was enormous.
The scope of testing was very limited. We could set only maybe 2 question papers, set A and set B. And another problem was that it took a lot of time in marking and checking, in consolidating, and finally actually getting the final grade. So, and along the process there were many errors.
To overcome the problems, an engineering team developed an e-assessment and feedback system. The system uses TP's existing online learning interactive virtual environment, or the OLIVE platform. It has an extensive exam question database and the ability to analyze assessment results and display the analytics clearly for the user.
The system is easy to use. Everything is within a click of a button. Marking, checking and recording is all done within the system itself. So marking errors is almost zero.
As the system can generate multiple sets of questions for each assessment, the scope of knowledge tested is much wider. Depending on the nature of the assessment, students are able to receive immediate feedback on their performance and later a detailed assessment report.
In the past, the student used to receive very limited feedback in the form of either they have failed or they have passed. But with the new system, we provide much more detailed feedback, and then student could see even the topics that they didn't perform very well, and they could concentrate on those topics for their future learning or future examination.
For the teaching staff, the e-assessment and feedback system also provides valuable feedback to help them fine-tune their training.
After the assessment is done, from the feedback, we are able to identify the weaker students and we can do a follow-up action. And so on a class level, we are also able to identify the topics which the class is actually weaker in, and we can retailor the lessons to spend more time on these topics. And in summary, we are able to deliver better training.
Students' attendance rate, their subject performance, and how often they access the learning management system are some of the indicators of their learning behavior and patterns. But these data were spread out in various disparate sources. Without a consolidated profile of the students, it was a challenge for tutors to monitor their learning and identify those who were at risk academically. A team from the School of Informatics and IT provided the solution. They developed an application called the Learning Analytics Project, or LaPro for short. LaPro analyzes students' data and presents them intelligibly to the user through a single, integrated learning analytics platform.
At first, we spent quite a bit of time to identify what type of data we needed. After that, we need to know where the data from and to identify the data owner for the data. Once we get the data, we also spend quite a bit of efforts to cleanse the data and to do the data quality check. This is the first time we were all developing an analytic project, so we needed to identify the right platform which is practical and easy for user to use. These were some of the challenges we faced.
With LaPro, tutors can now gain insights into a student's learning behavior, and anyone falling behind can easily be identified. This enables the tutor to provide timely learning support and intervention to help the students.
As a subject leader, I'm able to use LaPro to identify all the at-risk students who are performing poorly, and find out what their absentee rates are, who their subject tutors are, as well as their care person. And with this information at hand, I'm able to act on it in a timely fashion by calling up their respective care person to follow up. In addition, LaPro is an intuitive system and it's also very easy to navigate.
It teaches me how to compose my own music and how to use different software to produce it. That's what I like most about the course.
You get to compose music, you get to perform in front of one another, you get to learn an instrument and sort of hone your skills. So I thought this was a very unique course.
Filled with hands-on activities, the cross-disciplinary subject, Music, Expressions and Applications, has a redesigned curriculum that motivates students and captures their interest.
Having taught the syllabus for one semester, the old syllabus, I knew it was heavily steeped in classical music, and that students, being very young, they may not be able to fully appreciate that. I'm from a contemporary music background, and because of that, I knew that the answer lay in there, because the students are listening to contemporary music nowadays. And music is something that I think should be very exciting, and students are more in touch with that aspect of music. So we are going into composition, sequencing and performance, and also that's because I knew the students are capable of a lot more.
Based in contemporary music, the new syllabus takes students on a learning journey that progresses from music theory to song composition. Using virtual instruments, students acquire basic music performance skills. They also learn to use audio technology to translate their compositions on paper into digitally sequenced songs with their own creative inputs.
I feel very happy that I managed to compose my own song, so that anytime in future I need to compose my own song, I can do it.
For group assignments, students form their own bands and perform the songs they create to a live audience. But to go that far within one semester has its challenges.
The staff, they were mostly classically trained, so they had to be oriented to the new way of doing things. And for myself as a curriculum designer, it was also very difficult because there was no one textbook that really focused on everything that I wanted, which was to teach the fundamentals of music theory, to actually composing and then sequencing it in software, and finally even performing it live. And I had to rewrite all the lecture slides and tutorial activities from scratch. So it was quite a big challenge for all of us involved.
The new curriculum may be more demanding on students, but many of them are excited by their newfound music skills.
From the students' perspective, it was definitely more difficult than the previous syllabus because the previous syllabus was mostly based on facts and factual recall and appreciation. But this new syllabus gets them to create something, and to do that they really have to understand what music is, and I thought that was a really steep learning curve for them. But they were very motivated.
Though the theory part was a little dry, the composing part and the performing part made it a lot more fun and interesting.
It generally was tough as I didn't have any music background, but at the same time it was fun as I get to experience, learn new things, and from there I became more aware of the rhythm and beats around me.